It's another edition of Chris Skinner's Countryside Podcast. And here we are on High Ash Farm, just outside Norwich. And it's something a little out of the ordinary this week because, Chris, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. It's pitch black.
It is pitch black, Matthew. We're going to do a nocturnal safari. We're going to go round part of the farm and just see what we can see. We might see nothing at all, but we're going to use the truck as a kind of mobile hide, if you like, and just see what's out and about because, believe it or not, about half our wildlife is nocturnal. It comes out at night and very secretive during daylight hours. Things like the deer on the farm are very elusive. Lots of the birds as well. So our nighttime hunting birds like hawks, for instance, are replaced by owls at night. So a complete transformation.
I can just make out through the trees there that there are birds swimming on your pond, aren't there?
They're the two very elderly geese, and they take to the water in the evening to keep away from any marauding foxes. There's also quite a lot of mallard on there as well, which are much darker plumage. We haven't got any lights on at the moment, and they spend the night here as well. And it's lovely because there's some other waterfowl come in. Birds like teal will come in quite regularly because I feed near the pond every night. It's a sort of habit I have. I just love attracting all the different forms of wildlife to the farm. So without further ado, I'm just going to start the truck up because I'm just going to show you something quite important. Away we go. It's only about 50 yards away. And we'll be doing several miles tonight. We'll be crossing 3 villages. The main part of High Ash Farms is in the central village of Caister St Edmund. And to the south we have Stoke Holy Cross, and we'll do a few fields there. And then on the northern portion of the farm, one called Arminghall, and perhaps we'll finish there. It depends how far we get because there's rain forecast later on. And I'm just going to stop outside the stables here. Handbrake on.
Not going to wake the horses up, are we?
I think we probably are. They've all had dinner and supper. They get looked after better than I do. So we'll just have a look. I'll show you something.
It's dry at the moment. Rain forecast for later, so let's hope we can avoid that rain. But it is night time, just after 8 o'clock in the evening, and
monumental oak tree there with a big cable supporting it in case it blows over one day. The bottom's a bit rotten, but it's got a few good roots on. My wallflowers are doing really well as well around the bottom. Matthew, look, side of this old Norfolk Pantile building, it's got ivy on it. Doesn't look very interesting, does it?
Well, it's ivy.
It's
yes.
ivy, but it's really important. You can see the berries there. Some of it's coming to fruit. It flowered late autumn, and there's lots of bees and butterflies on there. And I just want you to come in. We'll see what we can see. The secret is to get the torch and point it upwards and just have a careful look, because I think...
Oh, I can see some feathers.
There you are. There's one. Well spotted, Matthew. That's a house sparrow. Oh. It's a male house sparrow as well.
And he's there roosting for the night?
Yes, and there's about, I've counted them going in here about 5 o'clock this evening, just as it was dusk, and there's about 22 in here, all well secreted, and it's a way of saying sorry to them, because I used to have to come round in the evening with my father and have a brooch, which was a hazel cane, and we used to hit the side of the ivy and kill the sparrows because they were a pest in my childhood, a mega pest. And my father took a hatred to them, and it's my way of saying sorry for my past. But
so there are more than 20 birds in this not huge patch.
Yeah, a huge patch. Right? It's about 3 metres across and 4 to 5 metres tall.
And they just find a little place in there.
Stuffed with sparrows in there. Believe me, I just saw them all peeling in. They all go in together. But it just shows where our birds, these are the daytime birds. There's lots here at the farm. Passer domesticus, the house sparrow. and there'd be a few tree sparrows about as well, but they're as rare as hen's teeth these days. But it's absolutely lovely to see them, and I know that there's one a bit higher up. If you come this way just a little bit, there he is.
Oh,
just,
yes.
just right secreted.
So they don't
in the-
fly off then when you do this?
No, they don't. I mean, it's best that they don't fly off, which is why I don't like. And another one a bit higher up, just in there, look, just at the top
Yes.
of the beam.
He's got prime position
Yes,
up there, hasn't he?
right at the top. They are vulnerable to rats. Another one. Look there.
Oh, you can see them.
You start to see more and more and more. Absolutely lovely. I so love them to bits, and it's my way of saying sorry. And the good secret is when you look on the ground here, on the concrete grooming area, covered in sparrow droppings. There we are. It's a good start to the evening. What more could a boy want?
And they'll have just gone to bed in the last couple of hours, probably, won't they?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, they'll spend the night there, rain or wind. The way the ivy leaves overlap gives them complete protection. So when it rains hard, they can stay completely dry in
We're
there.
expecting rain, and actually, while we've been recording, the wind has got up.
Yes, it has.
significantly,
Yes,
hasn't
but we'll be in the truck. You've got to have the window open, but I notice you're well wrapped up. So
it? Say that again. Right, let's head out onto the fields.
off we go. It's just a short drive to the first field, and we're lucky because the heavy rains we had a few weeks ago have all soaked in, and the ground's dry enough to drive on. Now, I only do this once a year. This little bit track's a bit bumpy, as we head away to the farm.
What do we have here? Rabbits?
2 rabbits in front, so
Rabbits in the headlamps.
that's our first mammals of the evening.
Eyes shining brightly.
Yes.
They just
There we
about
are.
have the sense to get out of the way.
Yes, they're pretty good. Yes, so anything we see is a bonus. I did expect to see rabbits, and we've got teasels in front of us here, just leaving the farm behind us, and it should be dry enough. But first of all, 4-wheel drive in should kick in, and this is a standing crop of overwinter white-bellied seed mixed cereals mixed in there. And we're just driving out into the field now.
These fields have become very familiar to me over
Yes.
the years during the day, but at
Yes.
night, so different.
There, what have we got?
Oh.
There we are, right in front.
Hare.
Our first hare. Well spotted. I think you can do this by yourself. You're getting excellent at spotting the wildlife.
Well, it's the shape.
That's lovely. Absolutely beautiful.
And I think you've told me before, rabbits by the margins, but hares in the middle. And
Yes, that's right.
That hare is in the middle of this
That's
field.
hares out in the middle. What did we have there? No, that's just some stubble sticking up there. We'll head back into the standing crop now.
How is your hare population?
It's fantastic. Really, really good. This area of overwinter wildbirds is where they spend the daylight hours. They can hunker down in here, and very good cover for them. And already the female hares, the does, will be giving birth to the first leverets of the year. So this crop's quite tall, as you can see. So what I was hoping for was to see the deer out here. It's quite a large field with sort of zigzagging across it. There's a hare right in front, Matthew.
Well, with his ears down and now bounding off to the right there.
Lovely. That's about as close as you'll ever get to a hare, that one.
They're quite large, actually, aren't
They certainly are. It always surprises people. Buck hares are even larger than the does. And woodcock, just then.
I saw something flying
yes,
up.
Definitely a woodcock. Wow. And this is ideal habitat for. There's another one.
Oh, it's
just
just
came
flew.
out. And immediately, once this part of the crop's a little bit lower down, so we've got a better chance of seeing some deer here. It's what we call brackled over. But I have got to be careful because there's 1 or 2 springs on this field, not the ones that the car suspension's on, but water rises up out of the ground because it's quite hilly. And there we are, our first deer. And 2. About 50 yards in front of me, Chinese water deer. big tusks coming out of the top jaw. We might get a bit closer. Not trying to drive quickly to scare them. We're doing 5 miles an hour, so nice and slow. But like all the deer species, they're very adept at legging it and disappearing. We call the roe deer, the resident deer here at the farm, we call them fairies of the woodland. But that was lovely to see those, a pair of them. Hopefully we'll get a better view of them when we visit some of the other fields. I hadn't realised this is so tall. It's very nearly shoulder high.
Bird flying up.
Was there?
Might be another woodcock.
Yes, because of the water table here, the way in parts of the field the water rises up, it's absolutely ideal for the woodcock to feed. They get down in there and their main food is worms at this time of the year, and so it's easy feeding. That is another woodcock gone up. Wow. And this is what happens in cold weather. The woodcock come across from Western Europe, and because they're probing birds, they've got very long beaks indeed. They're safe once they get to the 1st of February, then the shooting season for them finishes. So the ones that are here now, hopefully some will stay and breed. They're a breeding species, but many come in from the near continent. And one of the feathers in my cap, if you like, is to stop the shooting of them on the foreshore. I worked in with Suffolk police and alerted them to the fact that woodcock were being shot as they flew in on migration, and birds were actually landing in the sea, and Suffolk police took over and managed to stop that happening, so I'm really pleased about that. It's now become a red list species, funny enough, although it's still shot. Matthew, the tall plants you can see sticking out at the top of the crop is a special here. It's one I did battle with through my... Another woodcock.
Oh, great view of one there.
Yeah, just that bars on the
Vertical
breast.
takeoff.
And perfect camouflage as well. Scolopax rusticula, a part of the scientific name rusticula. Rusty colour, if you like. Just lovely view of one then. So the tall plant that we're driving through, you can hear it going underneath the truck, is fat hen, and it was a real problem, but now I'm harvesting some seed and sowing it. My father would pull his hair out if he knew what I was doing, because he had huge problems with it. He was an early sugar beet grower in the early part of the 1900s, supplying the local sugar beet factory, Cantley, and fat hen was a real problem because it would wrap round the knives of the harvester and stop it working properly, and so it was a bit of a problem.
But fat hen's also a good food source.
It's a brilliant food source, absolutely fantastic. The little black seeds, pheasants absolutely love it, so does many of the small species of birds. This is a fallow plot. It looks exactly like a very large lawn. That's 3 hectares there in front of us. Beautiful. What have we got there?
Is there something?
Something else. That can be just a stone. And something is in front of us out there. Let's have a little look.
Something with ears.
Is that going
This is
to
a
be
rabbit.
Is that going to be a rabbit? Possibly. It's staying stock still. So yes, it's a rabbit. It's quite well out in the field and it's grazing on this nutritious young grass. We'll leave him. He's hunkered down, and we'll leave him undisturbed. So get back just in the margin. And there's a Chinese water deer.
Very close view of one.
Only
Just
about
disappearing.
20 yards away. That's a female. She hasn't got those. And another, and a hare right in front of us.
Going low through the undergrowth.
Yes. It's just enough cover to keep them so we can't get very good view of them. But the Chinese water deer was a female. She didn't have those tusks coming out of the upper jaw. We've actually got more Chinese water deer per square mile in East Anglia now, particularly in the Broadland region, than they have in their native territory, which is China, in the river valleys there, and in Korea as another home for them. But so much human pressure on their habitat that we've now got more Chinese water deer per square mile in East Anglia than they have per square mile in China. So there we are. Right, just onto one of the tracks now. And I'm keeping my eye out for owls the whole time. It's always interesting to see if we can see a barn owl, little owl. Tawnies are about as well this time of night. This is a wildflower field, and it's just been grazed off by the sheep. Lots of sandfoin out here. A favourite with the deer is lucerne, and that's just beginning to grow, but nothing on here. I'm not really surprised, because just 2 weeks ago there was an electric fence around there to keep the sheep in, and if any hares walk up to the fence or the deer, they get quite a shock, so they tend to avoid the fields that the sheep have grazed on, because they learn pretty quickly. That's not very pleasant, having a few thousand volts on a very damp nose, so they tend to avoid this area. Good. Right, now we're heading out to this part of Caister, and in a moment or two we're going to cross the stream here, which takes us into the next village, Stoke Cross. Large area of woodland in front of us there, and cross the stream.
You can see why in centuries past, as we approach the woodland here, it was a source of stories and folk tales,
Yes.
wasn't it? Mystery and superstition.
Absolutely. And my children name that little bit of woodland. There's a lot of conifers in it, and they found it very spooky. And today, if I mention this portion of the farm, all three children know exactly where it is. It's called the Dark Corner. So that's really appropriate for it. So we're now on to a hayfield. We're in Stoke Holy Cross, the parish of Stoke, and we're just looking at the first bit. Oh, here we are.
Oh, some ears.
2 hares right in front of us.
Would that be male and female, do you think?
That's a high chance. Very difficult to tell the sexes. They do look very alike, particularly at night. They're only, 20 yards in front of us, not at all perturbed by us, and they're out again grazing on this nutritious grass. They're just lolloping along right in front. Something else caught my mind. Another hare. So we've got 3. And look in front.
Oh.
Matthew, on that oak tree in the ivy.
Owl. Owl.
I do believe, I think, fingers crossed.
It's the right shape.
Oh, it's the right shape. It's
glowing, isn't it?
white.
About 15 feet up.
I'm just going.
Got a perching post on that tree.
Wow. I did not expect. I hoped we might see one. Let's have a look.
Oh, it's magnificent.
Focus the binoculars, and there is a male barn owl. Can I pass the glasses to you?
Yeah.
Look at that. It's 30 yards away from us. Absolutely beautiful.
You can see the disc.
Yes, the
The
facial
feathers.
disc.
It's a nice dry night currently, isn't it?
Yes,
So
and
that's perfect
it's
for it.
downwind. It's a pure accident. I mean, you can't plan seeing this, but to see one within 15 minutes of us starting our nighttime safari, I've crept up a little bit closer. There we are. That's 20 yards now.
Barn owl.
Oh.
How exciting.
That is more than exciting. That's a red letter day.
Fabulous.
I think just put this on, see if we can gently focus that torch on it. There you are. It's looking at us. There. Facial disc, hooked beak.
I can see the eyes now.
You can see the eyes. They will reflect. If it looks straight at us, it can reflect the light of this little spotlight I put on it, and it's been very obliging. So I'll turn this light back off. That is the best view of a barn owl out in the countryside that you could possibly ask for. All these margins are tusky grass, so there's a very high this is the trouble with nature and falling in love with nature. I love all the harvest mice, the field voles, the long-tailed field mice that are here, and that's supper, breakfast and dinner for that barn owl. And I've got 2 boxes up this avenue of oak trees. So well done, Stoke Holy Cross. You're going to have a little round of applause. That is an incredible sight.
Well, 4 hares, those deer, and a barn owl all within a few yards.
Yes, all within, 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to leave that one in peace. Oh, God, it's not a stuffed one, I promise you.
He put it out there early. Yes, his friend the taxidermist.
No, goodness.
No, he was moving. I can testify to that.
Yes, oh, you're so spoiled. That is absolutely beautiful.
We're on a nighttime safari with Chris Skinner on High Ash Farm. It's about 8:30 in the evening, and we're ranging. Oh, there's a bird going up there. Skylark. We're ranging across Chris's fields here on High Ash Farm and seeing what's up and about when we're in front of the telly of an evening. And we're back on another field, Chris, and 2 deer just nonchalantly wandering up the hedgerow.
And one's given the game away to tell you what species they are. It's got a tail, and the tail is gone vertical, and it's snow white, and they're a pair of muntjac deer. Another one of the introduced species. We only have 2 proper native species in the UK, and that's the red deer and the roe deer. The fallow deer, a lot of people think, is a native species, and it became extinct, and then it was reintroduced, we think, firstly by the Normans, and then there was a later introduction as well. And the deer closest to us, only about 20 yards in front of us now, is a male muntjac, and he's got those 2 little antlers. The Chinese water deer we saw earlier is unique among the deer in this country anyway, and it doesn't have any antlers whatsoever, just the 2 tusks on the males, which they use for fighting. There you are, look at that. 20 yards, a pair of muntjac
They
deer.
don't really look perturbed. I
No,
wonder what
they're
they
just-
think we are.
I don't know, no, just a pair of bright eyes behind them, and the wind's in front of us, so they're not sensing us. We'll just swing around on this field, because we're up top of a hill. What have we got down there?
Oh, several.
There's more heads.
Eyes, red eyes
Yes,
looking
red
at us.
eyes. It's like me after a long night out. Look at that. Beautiful. Absolutely stunning. A nice pair of heads. One very inconveniently, 2 going one way, one the other. Another 2.
Yes. This field is full of hares. There must be 6 at least.
Yes, more hair than there is on the top of my head. After farming all these years. Look at that. Wonderful. And another 2. 3, 4 in front of us. 1, 2, 3, and 1 there. 4.
One's down in its
on
form.
on its haunch. No,
Haunch.
it's not in a form. They're all out feeding. Remember, hares are pretty much nocturnal. You will see them in March and April, and at this time of the year they will gang together like this. It's probably 3 males and a female, and she's separated herself from them, which gives the clue away. There you are, look at that, a group of hares. They're probably all jack or male hares, and they're running away, and she's been given a bit of peace and quiet, as if she's coming into season. She may have, well, it'll be mayhem, let's put it like that.
There she is again.
There she is again.
Yes, you can tell she's the female. She's a bit smaller
Yes,
than
she
the others.
is. Yeah, just
You've got
lolloping
that-
away. Nobody's being frightened. You can see she's stopped and she's grazing now. Look, sign of being relaxed, but just giving her some relief of those suitors, we'll call them. They're not always very gentlemanly, because if she's not ready to mate, and mating happens from now onwards in particular with the milder weather and all this fresh green grass for sort of nutritious food for them, she'll be giving birth in 6-8 weeks time to 2, 3, 4 leverets in a form, and then she'll distribute those and feed them just after dusk each night. So they only often get 1 feed a day. The milk that they produce is very, very nutritious. I love them here, and the field and the top of the headlights over in the distance there, still in Stoke Holy Cross, is called Harry's Field. And what I didn't know is part of the scientific name of the hare is, or harrier, is like you had the Harrier jump jet, and the aeroplane that took off vertically, and hares, when they leave their form, they jump lepus europinus. So they jump vertically out of the form, and so when you hunted hares, you had harriers to hunt them. And hunting hares now with dogs is now illegal in this country. So this is wild bird seed mix yet again. It's not so tall as the last crop we drove through, and we're just heading diagonally across the field. This is quite heavy clay, and beautiful driving conditions. I've got quite wide tyres on the vehicle, so we're not sinking in at all, and we're not making any marks at all.
You've got me to push as well, haven't you?
I've got, sorry?
You've got me to push.
Yes, I have. No, Daniel's on call. We've got the mobile with us tonight, mobile phone. It's turned off, but I have been known in the past to call on my son's services to pull me out of getting stuck. But I said I only do this once a year, so it's as much a treat for me, for all our podcast listeners, and as it is for you as well. But I'm going to have a job to top trump that owl. We're now on to another field, a big grass margin on our right hand side, and we're travelling along the tracks round the edge for the horses to ride on, and then we can now swing round into this tall grass margin and head out onto this field. This is 25 acres, that's 10 hectares, and again it's over. There we are. What have we got?
Some ears and a tail.
Yes. Have we got a white bottom on that one? No, it's another Chinese water deer, and that's running away from us. It's about 30 yards in front.
You mentioned the native species. Would you hope to see those deer on an occasion like this?
Yes, they're become much more common, and it's stopped and it's turned around and looking at us. It's got that black nose, very attractive large black eyes, and distinguishing feature of them are these huge, like teddy bear ears high up on the head. So they look very attractive, although they're actually surprisingly small. They're not really any larger than a Labrador dog, to give you an idea, on slightly longer legs, but they're very elegant, and when they run away from you, like that one was just doing, every third or fourth stride they kind of kick their back legs up in the air higher than their back. It's really quite odd to watch how they run, but they can get up quite a speed. They can do 25, 30 miles an hour without any trouble at all if they have to get away. Main predator would be man, dogs with the fawns if they give birth out in cover, but this is their favourite habitat. They like lots of cover. Reed beds as well, around the Broadland area. It's one of their favourite places as well.
You'll find them in suburban settings as well, though, won't you?
Yes, that's more the muntjac than the Chinese water deer. Chinese water deer are more sort of, I won't say solitary, but they tend to keep themselves to themselves. Muntjac will come into urban areas, daffodil bulbs, snowdrops, and particularly crocuses. They'll use their little hooves and dig crocus bulbs up, much to the annoyance of gardeners. And the other favourite food that muntjac like as well are roses. Here we have another Chinese water deer in front, another female.
Teddy bear ears.
Yes, sticking up, just lolloping along. An impression is it's a much larger animal, isn't it, and than what I'm describing, but it'd only be about 10, 11, 12 kilos in weight, so not too heavy. But pair of very shiny eyes down at the bottom here. Silver green eyes. We're heading straight towards it and heading up the wind again, which is to our advantage.
Looking straight at us.
It is looking straight at us. What have we got? Closing in, 60 yards. Pair of large ears I can see. 50 yards.
Chinese water deer again, should it be?
And roe deer, white bottom.
Aha! Native species.
Yes, definitely.
Bounding off.
Yes,
that way.
bounding off. close to one of the smaller areas of woodland and known as Notre Dame Wood, planted by the children of Notre Dame School, and there's some tussocky grass just on the edge of the woodland here, and that's made it into the woodland. So woodland fairies of the wood, I call them. They have this art of disappearing, but very distinctive white bottom with the raised hairs on the bottom. And fortunately, we talked about roe deer last Sunday's podcast, and I put the camera exactly where we were standing by an old ash stump, and I have got a beautiful roebuck within a few hours of where we were standing with a doe as well, a doe, the female roe deer, and I got them in just a bit of sunshine, and it's a glorious video. You'll be able to see that on High Ash Farm Facebook later on. We'll get that posted up Friday or Saturday just before the Sunday podcast goes out. Here we are. What have we got now? Large bird flying, another deer in front of us. Let's hope we can keep the whatever it was. It's hovering. This is unusual. What on earth's happening here?
I can see the wings.
The wings are beating. It's
white.
never going to be a kestrel.
Must be another barn owl.
50 yards away. It's hovering. That is so... When it's going to... The way it's flying, it's in full headlights. It has to be... It's got to be a kestrel. I've never seen an owl hovering like that, but it's pitch dark. It's hovering again. Matthew, that is so unusual.
It's not far off the ground, is it?
It's coming. It's hunting.
It must be a kestrel. It's exactly what a kestrel...
It's hovering. It's completely still. There's a strong wind. The wind is now behind us, so the bird is facing us. And what on earth is it? Well, it's curled away and it's just flown away from us. It's about gone to 100 yards in front of us. It's pale underneath, but it's hovering. It just has to be a kestrel at night, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. And
there's not that much light, is there, for it to function?
No, but it's got an owl-like appearance to it. Let's put my big spotlight on. We'll give the game away. Fishhooks. You know what that is? It's a barn owl. Look.
A barn owl hovering.
Hovering, completely still.
That's behaviour very rarely seen.
I don't think I have never seen that before. It was hovering in one spot. They will do that, and then they fold their wings up vertically and drop down into the crop. But it was a strong wind, and it was flying into the wind, and it was just holding one spot. But because we were head on to it, I couldn't see the white plumage underneath. There it is. It's doing the same thing on the top of the field.
So
2 barn owls in one night. I mean, that's just unbelievable. It's still. It's absolutely, completely still. Look at that. Rapid wing movements. In one spot still, and it's still hovering.
Using the wind to stand up into it, I suppose.
Yes, yeah, look at that. And it's 3 feet above the crop, in full headlights.
The only thing we haven't seen so far is him diving to get his prey.
I know, yes, so it's because it's vision, and it's using the sound as well of any small mammals moving in the crop. And this crop is absolutely stuffed with small mammals, so it's easy hunting on here. So there it is, and it's now hovering again, and it's gone down. Yes, it's gone down, and it's got something. Wow, what about that? Yeah, that's just extraordinary. Yeah, just extraordinary. We'll leave that in peace. It's flying down the margin, using the wind to its advantage, but something, and it's still doing the same again. It's got a small mammal in one talon, and it's still hunting. But nothing surprising. I've got barn owl boxers all around these fields, and the female can actually be incubating already. They're early nesters. The young are in the nest for a long, long time, and there we are. Wow. Right, we're going to travel across the farm now. We're going to go on the road, and we're going to the next village on the north edge of the farm, which is Arminghall. But I think we're going to have a job to top trump Stoke Holy Cross. I think it's going to hold the Golden Safari Awards for tonight.
This is Arminghall, and we've just seen a woodcock, Chris.
Yes, short grazed grass. The sheep have left this bit. It's a field for hay for 2024. So we remove all the last autumn's growth by grazing it off. North Country Cheviots here, and the flock is right beside us. And just as we drove onto the field in Arminghall, woodcock got up very, very close, and you could see that lovely barred plumage and the long beak. And when they fly, unusual, they fly with the beak facing downwards. And unusual beak, it's about 4 inches long, Matthew. Beautiful, beautiful birds. And the tip of the beak has got some special sinews running down the top of the beak, inside the beak, and the bird can open up the tip of the beak. So it probes down into the mud, senses a worm, and then the tip of the beak actually opens up like a pair of tweezers and grabs the worm. The woodcock doesn't end up with a beak full of wet mud. It then pulls the worm out and then eats it once it's out of its little burrow, and that's its favourite food. They will eat other small soil invertebrates as well. So that was absolutely beautiful to see that. Again, strictly really nocturnal. You do see them out in daytime if you're walking through sort of damp woodland in particular. You will sort of flush them out. And they're one of these birds, like snipe, that we also have here out on the grassland on the farm. They don't really get up until they're right under your feet, and they kind of rely mainly on camouflage. And beautiful birds though. And one of our old measurements in British sort of chains, rods, poles, perches, and it's the rod was a certain measurement in terms of yards. And woodcock, when they do their courtship flight, fly round their territory, often in a circle round a piece of woodland, and the wing beat is so slow it looks as though the woodcock's measuring out its territory, and it's called a roding flight, which is an old imperial measurement of distance. So beautiful birds, and it also croaks rather like a frog as it's flying round surveying its territory. Right, this is really heavy soil now, so I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, because at the top of this field it's quite waterlogged, and I'm just zigzagging about. If I keep us moving, we're less likely to disappear. This is ideal territory for hares. This one hasn't been grazed yet. It's over winter grass and wildflower field here. Lots of sandfoin and clover, because the pH is very, very high indeed. Horses way in the distance. What have we got there?
Was that a hare?
Probably a hare. Let's have a little look.
Long ears.
Yes. Yep.
Right in the middle of the field.
Yeah, typical of hares. As I said many times before, hares often use a hill and run up a hill because their long hind legs gives them advantage of being able to run uphill, and they generally run out into the open, whereas rabbits will do the opposite. They'll run to cover, and often near hedgerows or woodland. So that was really nice. And we got here some deer. It's looking at, it's got its head held way up. Is it going to be, I can't see the tail, it's a muntjac, got its tail down at the moment, and it's turned and it's running away from us, very close. Female muntjac, doesn't know quite which way to turn.
Let her go off into the darkness.
Yes, Duke of Bedford introduced them, and we've got another congregation of hares.
3 I can see.
3, yeah, in front of us over there, going away in the distance.
I think I saw a 4th pair of eyes as well there.
Yeah, very nice. And the last field just coming up through this gap. There she is, female muntjac. Really confused. Oh, she's got her tail up just then. Flash the underside of the tail, which a lot of deer species do. They've got white bottoms with the roe deer, or a tail which they can, like a rabbit scut we call it, and they can show the others where to run by displaying that tail when it's pitch dark. So there we are. Oh, finishing off on top of a hill, 2 more hares in front of us. I sort of estimate the population of hares on a farm between 50 and 60.
Really? That many?
Yes, and the old rule of thumb with hares is 6 to 7 hares eat about as much as 1 sheep. But with about a square mile of countryside like this, there's much more than enough habitat. They are very close, look, just bounding away effortlessly. And another one in the distance. Oh no, that was a fox.
I just caught it going there into the woodland.
Through the hedge, as quick as lightning, quicker than we were. Oh, I would have loved to.
I can see the eyes reflecting back.
Yes, they're just reflecting back the other side of the hedge. Definitely a fox. Well, we wrote fox by that one, but only just. Absolutely lovely. There you are, Matthew. We've got some questions to answer, so we're going to have to go back to the farm office now. So I hope you don't want overtime. And they're the horses with their reflective jackets on over in the distance there.
What a terrific evening.
That really was enjoyable. As I said, it's a once-a-year treat for me, and I can see the first spots of rain just coming on the windscreen of the truck now. So we're both spoiled. Nice little pond at the bottom here, lots of water in.
Brimming full with water.
Yes, it is.
Doesn't seem long ago we were talking about how these were empty.
Yes, yep. And the seasons change and continue to change. There we are, back on the track, a bit bumpy. And a rabbit running across in front of us. And just as we got into Arminghall, we must have seen, 20 rabbits, 25 rabbits just running across into the woodland in front of us. All those mammals. That's what we are after all. So that's why I like sharing the countryside and the little patch of Norfolk that I can control with all the other creatures that like to call it their home as well.
We're inside now in Chris's office here, the farm office where Daniel and Chris run the whole operation. And it's lovely and light and modern here. There are even some computers. Are you learning how to use these things?
No, have you seen my fingers? I think sausages are the best description. I hardly ever come into the office, Matthew. I'm a very outside boy, either in the tractors or chainsawing at this time of the year because of all the fallen trees. So I'm very much still a hands-on farmer, but this is an equally important part of the business where the deals are done and all the organisation, the amount of paperwork, Matthew, that comes into a modern farm office, health and safety and all the rules and regulations that you have to comply with, as well as stewardship as well. It's endless, and so I don't envy Daniel. He seems to spend a great deal of his time in there. I was kerfuffling and muttering about it to start with, but once I started to learn how farming has changed in the last 25 years. All my father's bills used to be on the mantelpiece behind a Toby jug, and that's how it was run back then. It's completely different now, believe me.
Well, we're in the office sitting around the boardroom table, and here are some of your emails that have arrived. Terry and Ros, hello to you in North Wales. We're always fascinated every year as to whether the particular year is ahead or behind the norm. Could you please comment on this year?
Yes, we're pretty much where we should be. The snowdrops are now out. We're just into February now, and it's about as it should be. But what is changing is the variability of the weather. It's just become more and more extreme as each season goes past. We've had some horrendous gales recently. One in northern Scotland, I think, up in the Faroe Isles just yesterday. The highest probably land speed record that's ever been recorded. It was 153 miles an hour from one of the storms. Ingun, I think, was the storm. And that's horrendous. And that's past hurricane force, really. And so what we're noticing here at the farm is the variation in the weather. Long dry spells and then long wet spells as well. And that seems to be becoming the norm. And that's what concerns me.
Mark Tucker is listening in Sussex. Hello, Mark. And he's got a question about pied wagtails. Large roosts. In the corner of the garden is a large pond which is quite overgrown with bulrushes. Every evening at dusk, a large collection of pied wagtails congregate on the overhead wires and fencing near the pond. They're making quite a lot of noise. And using binoculars, I've managed to count more than 140 pied wagtails. So my question is, how common are these large roosting sites, and how far away do the wagtails come from to join this congregational site?
They're really quite common, more common than you might expect. When you see pied wagtails, you'll often see them on areas of close mown grass, usually quite near water, but one of their favourites is damp grassland, and they'll feed there. And then they have this habit of congregating, and particularly now moving into urban areas. I used to go into the centre of Norwich and stand outside Marks and Spencer's, one of the stores in there, and there's a ledge around the top of the store, and there was over 1,000 pied wagtails there. And then the roosters moved to Norwich Fruit Market for a year or two, in the trees, in the daylight, the sort of night lights there. And of course they don't get predation because very few owls in the centre of Norwich. And the roosters then moved to Tesco's, just at Harford Bridges, right outside the petrol station there. And again, out in the countryside, one of their favourite places is in reed beds, but they will congregate from quite a distance. It's always deceptive, because some of our pied wagtails aren't English ones. They will come across the North Sea, they will come from Scotland and move south. Some of our resident wagtails will move across the Channel, go down as far as Spain as well. So they move about quite a lot, but generally the resident pied wagtails stay where they are, within a mile or two of where they're born. They don't move too far unless you get these really cold weather movements. And generally they'll come from about 5 miles distance, so it's about the maximum.
Jane Nicholson has written to say that she doesn't remember ever seeing a pied wagtail in the garden.
Right, yes, very unusual. They will go in gardens. As I said, they like lawns, but you see them more and more in kind of industrial settings. As old sewage farms, before they started to use the modern means of filtering human sewage, there'd be lots of insects and bugs there. Remember, pied wagtails are insectivorous birds, and they really take their chance by staying in our country. A lot of the insectivorous birds, like swallows, swifts, house martins, will migrate away because there's not sufficient supply for them. But wagtails have learned, if you're near water, and as long as the weather's not too cold, there's usually an adequate supply of insects. And I love the way their tail flicks constantly. The male has a little black chin, and when you get 2 or 3 males together courting a female, he puts his head to the sky, and it's called a black gorget on his chin, and that's what really attracts the ladies. I haven't tried it, but believe me, for the wagtails it works, and their tails constantly wag, hence wagtail. And I just love the way they hunt for insects. They'll scurry along the ground, and if the insects take to the air, it does a little pirouette up in the air and lands back on the ground and snaps the insect.
Quick identification for Jane, in fact. She says, I noticed a small herd of deer, around 8 or so, 3 of which were white and the rest very dark brown to black. what would they be?
Almost certainly fallow deer. The black ones were introduced, they were a gift from the King of Norway to King James I, way back. And so they're jet black, and occasionally you have white ones as well. And we've had a white fallow deer at the farm here as well. Really beautiful. But you do get quite a colour variation in various other deer species as well.
Let's say hello to Rhiannon Owens. Thank you for your email. Rhiannon's going to be distributing some posters about your podcast.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. The more the merrier.
Sarah Long. My partner bought me a birdhouse with internal camera last year for my birthday. Apart from an initial visit, we had no visits. In December, we put some dog fur in the bottom, hoping it may encourage something. On the recent cold nights, we had a tit visiting, cozied down for the night. Then the next night, another overnight. I believe it's the same one each night, as have taken pictures to see its markings. Do you think they'll nest here and lay their eggs? Can we tell whether they're male or female? And will it be the female that sits on the eggs?
Interesting, a whole series of questions there. Well, firstly, it's nigh impossible to tell the sexes of blue tits apart. You can with grey tits. The black line down the lemon breast is quite wide on the male grey tit and then very narrow on the female. With blue tits, it doesn't work like that, so they both look identical. The female will choose the nest site. She will build the nest. The male's job, apart from fertilising the eggs, is to fodder her when she's incubating. So she puts on a huge amount of weight, about 50% extra in the course of a few weeks before she starts laying. And then literally with the tit species, many of them, they put all their eggs in one basket and have one huge brood. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 eggs is not uncommon. And she does all the incubating. While she's doing that, she pulls off the feathers off a patch of her breast to get really good close skin to egg contact to help incubate the eggs and keep them warm. And so she's got a little bare patch there when she's incubating, and she does all the work. But the male's job then becomes really, really important. They act as a pair, as one almost, if you like, that he's completely responsible for feeding her while she's incubating the eggs. She can't really leave the nest other than for toilet duties.
Had a note from Fergus Anderson. Nice to know that you're listening in, Fergus. And the same goes for from Trevor Lee, who listens in Kent and wants the rural riddle to return. That was your mystery sound,
yes,
wasn't it?
Yes, it used to be from years ago. Yes, you love doing that. Oh, there's always hope in the future.
Richard Everett has been poorly, and I hope you get better soon, Richard. But he says, Chris's calming tones have helped me cope and become a more patient. You should be on the NHS.
Get well soon.
And a photograph of what looks like a dog's bone here. This is from Bill. Not sure whether you have access to Instagram, so here's the comment on the photo of a skull. Well, there's a skull there as well, is there? Who knows more than I about the death rituals of badgers?
Yes, Bill lives in a large agricultural area and he's come across a few dead badgers and he's wondering how they died and why the bones are stripped bare. Well, in nature, everything's kind of recycled. So when a badger dies, if it's not died down in the set, then birds like buzzards will come and strip all the fur off and then anything edible. So it sounds a bit unsightly. Any carrion eaters will do the same as well. Carrion crows, obviously. Ravens is another one, and they will all make use of that. So nature's never wasted. So it's impossible to say why the badgers died. Sometimes you have road casualties. They get hit on a road and manage to scramble away. Sometimes, sadly, they get poisoned. Sometimes they get shot. Sometimes, of course, they just die of old age. They can live quite a while, 10, 12, 15 years, as long as that, if they can manage to get through that length of time. So there's no telling. So some of the questions I have, you can only guess at and put possible answers. But thank you everybody who sent in a whole array of questions. We'll try and get through some more of them next week. They're landing here in the office faster than we can answer them, Matthew, but it's lovely to have all the kind response as well.
Yes, and we've only been going less than 6 months now, so it's
Yes.
good that you're on board with this, and we're enjoying it very. I know, speaking for myself, I'm enjoying this very much, especially this unusual visit that we've had today
Yes.
after dark.
After dark, and one of the emails said, "Chris, you're my favourite human being." What a lovely way to finish the podcast. Big smile.
Email chris@countrysidepodcast.co.uk, and Chris will have the undoubted pleasure of seeing me in broad daylight this time next week.
Yes, looking forward to it.